What's up, everyone? Splice Night here, back for the first time in, God, over a year? Jesus, that's been a while. Anyway, so I'm back because I wanted to cover a show that I have basically seen zero coverage of, but I really think needs a little bit more light shed on it, and that is Guillermo del Toro's series, which is Tales of Arcadia, but the one that's sort of probably most famously known as the Trollhunters series. And basically, unless I go rooting around Tumblr, I don't see anything of it. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the series, which if you're clicking on here, you're probably familiar because I don't see a lot of YouTube content that covers this particular series, so you're probably looking for somebody to do that. Now, that being said, I'm not the only one who covers this stuff, and there are some people who do cover it, and I'll be extending some links their way just because I think if you're stumbling onto my content, you might enjoy theirs. But that being said, guys, let's talk now about the actual series themselves. So, this is actually kind of interesting because the series is actually multiple different shows, kind of all intertwined. And to be honest, to explain some of the shows, it requires spoilers for some of the other shows. So just going full into it, there is a bit of a spoiler warning going in. If you haven't seen them, I highly recommend it before watching the rest of this video, but that being said, they are hours and hours long, so be aware of that before going in, or come back to this video later, or just use this as a bit of a sampler to get a sense of if you want to watch the videos. Anyway, that all being out of the way, these three series are Trollhunters, Three Below, or Wizards. These different shows with their different branding are all interconnected by one simple thread: location.
Good afternoon, Arcadia host. Lots going on today. Whoa.
And this is actually really similar to a couple of other shows. Specifically, I've seen brought up by people like Giguk about the To Aru series, which is basically the anime equivalent for him anyway, which is also obviously something you see in the Fate series of an interconnected universe, kind of like the MCU, where there's all these different heroes from all these different areas of the universe and the meta. They've all got these own sort of established series and shows and movies that all kind of center on them, but they all work in the same universe, and they have these sort of group up movies.
Just as long as we're all in agreement. Let's kill him properly this time.
Now, this being said, you'll notice that there are some instances of this happening in cartoon history, but it's mostly Disney when they have like the mandatory crossover episode. So there's not a lot of depth to a lot of that most of the time.
It's not a race.
That being said, in this particular instance, there is a surprising amount of depth. Tales of Arcadia is actually a franchise of multiple different stories linked to the location, the same way that Academy City links the To Aru franchises, Railgun, Index, and Accelerator, together into one giant series. You have Arcadia, which links the stories of Wizards, Three Below, and the OG Trollhunters, which most people are going to be most familiar with. They all interconnect and interweave, and they actually clash and involve each other on different occasions. In Tales of Arcadia, the sort of interconnected area is Arcadia, this sleepy little town where most of the citizens enjoy a blissfully sort of ignorant and modern lifestyle. So they've got all the smartphone tech, they've got a lot of this other stuff, and it's actually based on a book series by Guillermo del Toro, but it is a little different. So for example, the character Claire Nunez is actually has a different name in the book, and she's actually not of Mexican descent as Claire Nunez is. She's actually French.
There was something different about you, and now I know. You're crazy.
They've essentially found a way to blend a universe of different styles of different magic and interaction systems where, for example, the Trollhunters have what's called troll magic, which is a sort of subset of magic which has these very strict and stringent rules that apply in certain ways and in certain instances.
The Horngastle!
of Wizards, which is a little bit more open-ended, and it's got crazy, ridiculous magic that works in all kinds of convoluted and different ways.
In terminus noctis conversa. I know this looks bad, but I swear I've got this under control.
And then you have Three Below, which is actually the story of two alien children who are royally related to a storyline that's actually outside of this world. And they just happen to naturally land in Arcadia Oaks, kind of in the same way where Weirdness attracts into Gravity Falls in the Gravity Falls series of the same name.
But something nagged at me. Where did it all come from? It seemed to me the answer must lie outside of our world, a dimension of weirdness leaking into ours.
Arcadia Oaks seems to gravitate for trolls, wizards, and of course, alien. And it's actually kind of interesting to see some of the interplay between different characters that live in the different series.
Where are we going again? A super secret teen center. What are those? Ooh, looks like human bones with bite marks. Oh, now things are getting interesting.
Teen Center?
Let's see you justify how we're supposed to be collecting the femur of a changeling and everything else on Merlin's list.
Kind of playing and crossing over. Anyway, in Trollhunters, we follow Jim Lake Jr., a boy who struggles with his sudden immersion into the world of trolls and fantasy creatures.
Let's burn some tunnels!
Now, where is the child?
I sort of just lost him.
Are you not babysitting?
Well, I'm not saying I'm good at it.
I don't understand how the baby could elude you if you were rightfully sitting on it.
While attempting to balance growing up in a high school.
Yeah, get over here, Steve. Eli Pepperjack! Hey, no booing!
I have friends!
So it's kind of got that high school protagonist relatability factor. So there is obviously a clear focus on children, and Guillermo del Toro has stated that the reason he did that was he's famous for movies like Shape of Water, which has a very sort of alien aspect to the monster creature, as well as Tales We Tell in the Dark, as well as Pacific Rim, which obviously deals with the kaijus, and that got really famous in the second one for being a little bit out there, but that had more to do with the fact that Guillermo was not as clearly involved. He was just a producer role as opposed to producer, director, and kind of having a much more involved and invested role. Now, that being said, we've seen this in some of his other projects. He's also done stuff for Hellboy. Knowing that background of Guillermo del Toro, we are kind of expecting a bit more of a horror aspect to things that he tends to work on. And in this particular case, he kind of went for what is kind of the least scary version of creature horror, and he ended up going with trolls in this particular case. So it's actually kind of interesting the way he's developed that out, and how he's incorporated some of the mythology of trolls into the particular show. The concept of bridges plays a pretty monumental role in a lot of what goes on in the main Trollhunter series. On top of dealing with the issues with trolls and all that craziness that's going on, he also has to, in the background, deal with growing up as a teenager.
There? Is Jim in there? We go on in an hour.
Bullies.
What a load of crunk! Admit it, dumb Zalski. He's not sick. He's just faking this because I won Spring Fling and he's just trying to steal my thunder.
Living in the US as a kid, so the level of people taking him seriously, as well as the fact that his mother is a single mother, trying to raise him on his own while working long hours, so he ends up taking on a sort of parental role of his own. So balancing that kind of responsibility as well, and kind of the nuance that comes along with that. In Three Below, obviously we follow Aja and Krell, which are the two alien characters.
Krell, on Mama and Papa! We've been hit! We lost firepower!
And their protectors as they crash land in Arcadia.
We have to at least buy time for the ship to repair Mama and Papa.
And so the interesting thing is that basically if you look at it from a timeline, Trollhunters happens in 3 seasons. And during season 2 and 3, one of the interesting things that happens is that they get introduced to Aja and Krell, but they're obviously in a more palatable form than their alien realities, and they explain why and how that's possible in the Three Below series, but basically they're able to pass as regular people.
Mother, you have to design forms for us that no one will ever pay attention to. You need to make us invisible.
I have chosen 3 forms that people on the Mud Planet tend to ignore. The first of such invisible forms is a girl.
Girls here are invisible?
The next is called a Latino.
I don't understand. What is a Latino?
That sounds fantastic. It sounds rather regal.
You, Commander Vex, will be reconfigured as a senior citizen.
Glorious! Varvatos should be senior to all. All 3 forms sound like winners!
A girl, a Latino, and a senior citizen, which at the time seems so much cooler than it ends up turning out to be for that person, and there's a whole kind of interesting banter behind that. Because of that particular show, it kind of sets up the wider world of the Arcadia magic universe, and the fact that there's more than just magic, in the same way that in the To Aru universe, there's more than just the magic religious sort of framework for religious and mythological framework for craziness to happen, where they have Espers as well, which is a scientifically based power set, and the two don't mix in the To Aru franchise.
I'm a sorcerer. But it's impossible for a sorcerer to live in Academy City, right? Think about it for a minute and you'll see, Kami. Science and magic are enemies, yes? A little bit of espionage between 2 rival sides is hardly surprising. A double agent can be very useful.
And that's what you are?
Yes, basically I'm a spy. I know pretty much everything about you, Kami, including, of course, your Imagine Breaker and its power. But my job as a spy comes with a price. Since I've taken so much of the Esper curriculum, I can't use my magic anymore.
In the same way, the Aliens timeline and Jim in the Trollhunter timeline generally don't intersect all that heavily, but they do all exist in the same town, so there is a surprising amount of overlap and interesting stuff that goes on.
You people really should be moving it.
And in fact, in those 2 particular series, because season 3 of Trollhunters happens at the same time as season 1 and 2 of Three Below.
That is not my weapon. How strange. He's just doing that in the middle of the street.
A shameless weirdo. That's my favorite kind.
One of the interesting things you'll notice is that after the sort of craziness that happens at the end of Three Below, we get introduced to this world of wizards.
Beware. You are in grave danger.
Whoa! A cat with glasses? The cat just talked, and you're focused on its eyewear. I've seen aliens, creeps, and trolls, Dobzalski. So yeah, I'd like to know why the talking cat's wearing glasses.
Bad eyesight.
Which is actually sort of the series that functionally finishes after Three Below and Trollhunters is already complete. So there's a lot of meta and lore already built up, which then gets applied into this new setting where they go into a whole other dynamic and have adventures in a whole different way. And there's a certain level of sort of upping the ante and adding a new level of complication to the series as a whole.
Also, unlike Umber Imps, Mephits are vulnerable to fire.
Saucy meat. Your pet munching days are over! Say hi to everyone in Limbo for me! You're welcome, Arcadia!
Each of the series has their own arcs for the different main characters, and different things happen where they all are involved. But in Wizards in particular, it's much more of like the Avengers movie. Index, where the main characters all sort of see each other often, they're kind of all well established for the most part, and they all kind of intersect to have a more cohesive storyline together. So you're playing off a bunch of these different aspects for the characters. So the main thing I want to sort of give as a final takeaway for this particular video is basically just that there's a surprising amount of crossover and kind of a deepening of the lore as things go on, and as different main characters have their own stories going, while they're still intersecting with characters from previous series that have their own stories continuing in the same way that they were in their own storyline. So it's kind of interesting to see that interplay. In the same way that you see the interplay, there is obviously the distinction between the troll magic, which is its own distinct thing, its own distinct limitations and abilities and differences, as well as the magic of the wizards, which, as I mentioned before, is a little bit more of a all-over-the-place, free-form style of magic. And then you have the aliens, whose main contribution is the ultra-high science kind of aspect. And this is all kind of coming together to give you an idea that if you haven't seen the show, I would highly recommend it because it's quite interesting and there's a lot to enjoy about it. That being said, if you're not convinced, if you are a fan of Guillermo del Toro and you've seen some of his previous works, you'll understand a lot of what's going into the show. He does have a lot of his signature style and his signature sort of tropes in the movies where the monster aspect of it is played up but not shied away and presented as this horrific thing, but just sort of a aspect of the reality and kind of humanizing the characters in a very interesting way. So yeah, that's kind of my long speech on why you should watch this show, because it's awesome. Anyway, if you like this video, guys, please let me know with a like or a thumbs up, or share this with your friends, or subscribe. That would actually be massive for this channel because we're growing, and this is me coming back for like the third or fourth time, so we'll see how long this time lasts, but I would love to, in the time that I'm here, kind of put my voice out there for shows that I don't think get quite the amount of attention they should get, as well as obviously dissecting some of the things that I do love from shows that are relatively popular, but I think I might have an interesting angle to bring to the discussion. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Splice Knight, and I'll see you in the next one.